Hi there, and welcome to Inside the Wooniverse, a podcast brought to you from the corner of Fringe in Maine. I'm your host, Colette Baron-Reid, and joining us today is the most marvelous human I know, best-selling author, mystic, poet, teacher, channel, and creative. I just love this woman. This is Rebecca Campbell. Now, she has been featured in Vogue, the Sunday Times, and Oprah.com. And she's the author of some beautiful books like Light is the New Black, Letters to a Starseed, and Oracle decks like Work Your Light and the Rose Oracle, and to name a few. Now, her content has been translated into over 20 languages, and she's supported hundreds of thousands of people around the world to change their lives and answer the calls of their soul. Welcome to the Wooniverse, Rebecca.
Yay. Great to be here, Colette, and everyone else.
Yes, all of us here in the Wooniverse. So listen, I want to go way back, like when you were a little Rebecca. What was your childhood like? And were you always interested in mystical people, places, and things? Could you always sense energy?
I think so. Yeah. I remember like saying to my mum when I was really little, like, there's something I came here to do and I'm going to show you what it is one day. So I always had that. But I think also I was very sensitive as a child. And my grandma taught me to pray. Like she was quite like religious, but spiritual religious. And so I always was in conversation with the sacred God. I mean, I didn't really know of the goddess then, but if I did, I'd probably be her.
Right.
But I definitely had that. I think back then it was more like a yearning, almost like an ache for something that I couldn't quite put words around. Obviously now I'm like, it's sacred, it's the soul.
Right.
But yeah, so it was a connection, but it was also like an aching for a connection. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
that is such a beautiful way of describing this because I had the same experience. It's an
Did you?
ache, this aching, yearning. I mean, I had felt it too, and I'd seen it. I mean, my experience was different, but that said, the ache was the same. And no one's ever said that in any of the interviews. And I really identify with that aching, yearning for the sacred and without knowing what to call it. It was just, we knew it was there, but where? The where, especially because of how we're conditioned to see the world. So interesting. So, I actually used to see you on Skype. So
I think
you,
it's so funny.
so tell me, I'm going to fast forward to when you were the Skype girl, and then how you got into, because you are one of the most phenomenally gifted spiritual teachers now, but I remember you way back. So let's how did you go from there to here?
So I think I always knew that I wanted to create, like put creations out there. And I went to university, I did communication. I've been studying in the mystical arts, like on the side. I'd been doing all that stuff on the side, but never saw it as a career. I just was like, it's
Right.
what I just love and can't get enough of. And so I always had a vision of putting creations in the world. And so I ended up going into media, like advertising, and I worked as a creative copywriter. So my job was to come up with ideas for different brands. And I moved to London really for my career, but also I think it's the ancestral connection as well of the sacred sites and all of that. But when I was in London, I would do these I had my journals, my affirmation journals. And honestly, I found this one recently. It was like hundreds and hundreds of pages of, I have a job that only I can do. And I inspire people around the world and I travel around the world and get paid for it. So I was very specific with what I wanted to manifest. And I was working as a freelancer, creative in London, and there was an agency I worked for, and they were like, we've got this idea for the Skype Nomad. It was a brand I was working on. I knew I knew the tone of voice and all of that. I did some freelance work and they liked my writing. And they said, so this is like a whole new idea. It was before the iPhone. There was definitely no Google Maps or anything like that. And they said, the idea is that we've got this Skype phone and you can have 3G on a phone. And it was like just so far out then. And so the idea is that you can Skype anywhere around the world on the move. And the concept is the Skype nomad who travels around the world nonstop for 33 days on Skype. So as in you're testing the mobility and the the
Yeah.
access you can get to. Yeah. So now it's like just everyone has a mobile phone with Google Maps and all of that. But back then it was very, very cutting edge technology. And so, yeah, I got given this role, and I literally had to. I was a blogger, essentially. I had never had
Right.
a blog myself. I'd been a writer, but I hadn't had a blog. And so I had a blog called The Skype Nomad, and I traveled around the world for 33 days in perpetual motion, like without stopping, which meant
Yeah.
I had to eat, sleep, and do everything on the move.
I watched the whole thing.
That
I
is
did.
so
And
amazing.
you know what's so weird is that I knew I would know you, but I didn't know how. And I'd be like, I know
Oh,
this person. Like I'd be looking at you. I
oh,
mean, you're much younger than I am. Like, I just know her. I know this person. And I'd be like, why
no.
do I know her?
Wow. Gosh.
But there you
Well,
were. I was
well, I
fascinated.
probably felt the same thing because I remember in Australia, I don't know if you went to Australia for the I Can Do It's, but I was obviously, like many of us, like Louise Hay's work was so influential
Yes.
for me. And when I was really young, I would go to the spiritual shop and like read the books and put my hands in the
Yeah,
crystals
me
and all of
too.
that. And I'd save up and go to these spiritual workshops. And I remember just like looking up at all these amazing teachers and being like, oh my gosh, I wonder if I could do that one day. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then through my 20s, same thing. I remember just seeing these incredible teachers, but seeing it as like this big gap between me and them. So I know that
And
feeling.
there was never a gap. You were just we were just waiting to catch up with each other. It was, but I had the same experience, interestingly enough, too. Only obviously different time frames. But
Mm,
looking at Marianne Williamson's book when it first came out, A Return to
mm,
Love, she was also a singer, and I was a singer, and I was reading this book, going,
mm.
I wonder, oh, this feels like me. And yet I was like, how would I ever? Because I was always in the spiritual book shops too, and studying about divination and all the other. I was literally they let me go in the bookstore. I had no money to buy any of the books, but I would be
Yeah.
in this bookstore constantly. And then when Here Comes Colette, and I could go with my little lunch, right, and sit there and
Oh.
and literally read. And they were so nice to me. But yes, I would. I
Mm,
felt the same thing. Like, wow, could I ever do that one day? And here we
mm.
are, right here
It's
we are.
amazing.
So besides Louise Hay being a great influence on you, and I wanted you to tell that story, by the way, about being the Skype nomad, because I also, and I knew you were going to talk about the journal, because I have like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of journals, some of which I had to get rid of because there's too many, but I still have the very first one of affirmations that I did,
Mm.
and everything in it has been manifested. So when
Wow.
you said I travel all over the world and get paid for it, that was like I was so excited that you actually told that story, because you have literally, if you go back in your journals, created every single thing, called in.
100%. It's amazing. And it's not amazing because we know it works, but
Yeah,
yeah, when you actually go back and see, because I think when you really, really, really yearning for it, I think when you then begin living it, it feels a
yeah,
little bit more like a dance. But when
yes.
you begin like that, everything feels so, because I
Oh,
think
at a distance.
yeah, and I think most of us, not all of us, but most of us are raised in kind of like a society or a life that is like what you should be living
Yeah,
versus
the conditioned reality.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And so I think that for a lot of us, that first leap into kind of the dance with, whether you call it the sacred, the universe, or whatever, it does seem far away. And maybe it's an age thing as well.
I have a theory that I
Mm,
haven't talked about with too many people, but do you also think that when we do affirmations, the ones we're attracted to are because our soul wants us to say those things? Because when I
mm,
look back at the affirmations, they were never really coming from a place of lack. They were inspired. So I
mm.
wonder if when we open up to this, we start feeling the inspiration to claim it as the affirmation, and then it happens because it's already built into us, I
Yeah,
think.
that makes sense. Yeah, because I think for me now, I do work with affirmations, but not like I did
Me
before.
neither.
And
Yeah.
so the affirmations felt like the bridge to living
Yes.
the soul's voice every day. maybe.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
maybe
It's
that's
like
it.
the fire starter, right? It's
Right.
like
Yeah.
the
So it's the
right?
higher self telling you what your soul's telling you.
Right, exactly. I mean, I've been fascinated with this because I worked it. I worked those
Right.
affirmations. Anyway, so now did you study with anyone in particular? Or did you just find your own path? Like, did you, who were some of your teachers or what were some of the books that you loved?
A bit of all of the above.
Right.
I would say my first real book, besides You Can Heal Your Life, was Many Lives, Many Masters by
Uh-huh.
Brian Weiss.
Yes.
Weiss? I always
Weiss, yeah,
forget which
Brian
one it
Weiss.
is. Lovely guy. I know him well now. Very grateful. But that was a really influential book for me. It kind of like hurtled into, the past life conversation, Akashic Records, all of that kind of stuff. Another really strong book for me was, strangely enough, it's a little bit morbid, but I'd always been fascinated by death and grief and like
Yeah.
just what happens when we die, where we go. And so my first book that I read, actually, it's even before all the spiritual books, was On Death and Dying and the Stages of Grief.
Elizabeth Kubler-Ross.
Yeah. And when I look back at like the experience that really hurdled me into the spiritual world, it was through connecting with a couple of young teenagers who had passed over and then being kind
Mhm.
of connected with their mothers. So there was something about the threshold of death that really initiated something in me. And interestingly, when my mum, I had my son about almost 3 years ago now, and when my mum came to visit around that time, she mentioned, "Oh yeah, do you remember? Not do you remember?" She's like, "I don't know if I've ever told you this, but when you were born, I actually shared a room with a woman who had just lost her child."
Wow.
And so, like, my first 2 weeks of
Of birth.
life
Uh-huh.
was that threshold. And
Sure.
hearing that, oh my gosh, it erupted something in me because I'd always felt this deep grief within me and this
Mhm.
yearning to kind of like find a mother, even though I had a mother.
Oh,
So
I get
I
it.
think that really was the first initiatory thing for me that really, woke, because I was at the threshold of birth and death at the same time, and joy
Uh-huh.
and grief and all of that, which I think is like a core part of my work. I'm discovering. And then, yeah, as the years went on, one of my teachers, like who helped me, I guess, get the courage to create workshops and work professionally was Sonia Choquette. I went
Ah,
to her workshops in London in my mid 20s.
I didn't
So
know
she
that. That's
mentored
so
me for
cool.
a bit. Yeah. But nowadays, when I look back, the biggest teacher is definitely nature. It's how I do all my creative work and writing. Even when I was working as a creative in advertising, I'd go to the beach before work. I'd do like an hour of idea generation, and then I'd go and sit in a cubicle and pretend to work. So yeah, I think nature is the number one. Yeah.
I agree with you. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we don't live in a city. And actually,
Mm,
when we first moved to Sedona, Arizona, the mystical quality of nature, and we had to go somewhere that was so different from where we were in Canada. But it spoke to me. It always did. Even when I was a little kid specifically, and my dad was also an animist, so he raised me in that concept. But there is a sense that I had too that everything was in nature, and I always felt a yearning for it, like a that ache, the
mm,
ache that I didn't know how to communicate with it, because it's
mm,
true in the West, and certainly in our society, a global society. I mean, we've been taught that we live on the planet, not that we don't belong to nature. So
right.
that nature somehow is ours to do with what we wish. And that's
Mm,
totally wrong. So that's part of our great deep suffering, I think, and our disconnection. Anyway,
mm,
so I do want to talk more about the connection that you have with nature, because your body of work is about the soul. And as an animist, I believe that in the anima mundi, the soul of the world, so that you can't a soul-led life must include nature. It has to. It just doesn't work if it doesn't.
Mm.
So can we talk a little bit, because the common thread is your deep desire to connect people with the wisdom of their soul. So in your opinion, when we hear the whispers of our soul, how can we move beyond our fears of the unknown? And nature is frightening to some people, right? Because they don't know it. They don't know they belong to it. How do we move beyond our fears that we have, especially in the face of uncertainty?
Mm. Well, I think the first principle is, like you've just said, to realize that we're not separate from nature, rather, we are nature. And I think to realize that the society that we've all, if you look at it from a soul perspective, chosen to incarnate in, well, it's a
Yeah.
big time of change, but for a long time there's been such a focus on the spring and the summer. So you can see that is in like
Right.
the young women being, and slender bodies and all that kind of stuff being
Yep.
idolized. But then also just like we've had conversations before about like producing rather than creating,
Yep.
and not honoring the autumn and the winter and those times where actually we need to take a breath and take a back step so that the new
Mm-hmm.
seeds can kind of come in. And
Yep.
I think that the more that we connect with nature, the less afraid we get of those darker parts of us and the darker parts of life, which is like, I know
Mm-hmm.
for both of us at the time of recording this, we're in fall and those leaves are beginning to fall. And then we're going to go into the cloak of winter. And it feels like when we go through these phases ourselves, it can feel like, oh my gosh, nothing's going to grow again ever. And we just want to be in spring and summer. But if we don't give ourselves those times, and obviously this is a symbolic way of saying, like, when relationships, we know they're about to end, but we're just so afraid of loosening our grip and letting
Mm-hmm.
go. Might be a career, a job, whatever it is terrifying because we don't know what we're being called towards. But if we look towards nature, and something like a flower like the rose is teaching us this, all of
Yep.
nature is teaching us this.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the rose, there's the bud stage and then there's the beautiful bloom. But if you actually have roses that grow in your garden, you very soon learn that they're not around for that long. And
No.
we in our mind are like, oh, the rose is all about the flower. It's actually not all about the bloom. And
Mm-hmm.
if it has the courage to let the winds of the season change blow and let them surrender them to the earth, then the rose hip will come, the fruit, which is a whole
Yes.
nother phase, right? And then
Yes. And that's
and
medicinal.
exactly,
It's
exactly.
medicinal.
And
Mm-hmm.
some roses have a second bloom as well. And they're going to the next spring anyway. But if they clung to those petals and tried to stay in the bloom the whole time, they just like it's just not natural, And the next phase wouldn't come. And I think we know as humans that change is the one certainty. I mentioned death before. That is the certainty. But
Yes.
we're so afraid of it. We're so afraid of these things that are actually certain and natural. And so we try and cling to keeping things as they are. But I think when
Yeah.
we're trying to cling to keeping things as they are, what happens is like that's when things stagnate. That's when
Yep.
we're resisting this. We're relying on our own strength versus that intelligent pulse that tells the flowers when to bloom, that tells a
Mm-hmm.
baby how to be born, that governs the seasons and the tides, like everything in the cosmos as the ordered universe.
Has a cosmic blueprint. Every single thing
Literally.
does. Literally in every single one of us, like the acorn has the oak tree in it.
Exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we're trying to keep things the same and
Mm-hmm.
resist that change, and it is scary change, but when we're resisting it, we're trying to go against all of that whole blueprint. So I think that's what I remind myself all the time, which doesn't mean it's easy.
No. And I gotta, I'm so excited that you said this because again, I've never heard anybody talk about it like this, but I've been considering.
Mm.
So you said that we all want to stay in spring and summer. I've always been one. my birthday's in the summer, but I love the fall and winter. I
Mm,
know I'm going to give birth to ideas if I let go
right.
and see. And I love the yearning that comes in the poetic quality of watching the season, shift with the decay and the changes, and then the requirement for rest and sleep, and then knowing that spring will come. But I think part of what you just described, that society wants to stay in the spring and summer, and that's so true with the way we've seen beauty standards and ageism, et cetera, that even there's a pathology to wellness in some way,
Mm,
which is always about striving to keep yourself young, keep yourself a bud, keep that
mm,
bloom. When we have to acknowledge, like maybe those things that we're trying to erase, like we're trying to somehow erase the fall and the winter as cycles, when we should really not look at those things pathologically. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing wrong with these things.
mm,
It's like grief. It's like, oh, can you get over that? Or when is this going to end?
right.
We need the cycles of all of it. That's the full catastrophe of life. All of it. The rose hip and the rose, the thorn and the bud.
Totally. Yeah, it's so interesting. I've been reflecting a lot lately on like healing and what it actually
Hmm.
means to heal. And I think again, it's like particularly in the wellness kind of world, it's like it is like healed is the bloom, but
Yeah.
actually like it is in the decay that the new kind of comes again. And I even look at myself with my own like a body healing journey, which is
Right.
big.
Me too.
Um and those difficult times that I've been through physically, actually, when I've like properly allowed it rather than pushed on through it. And, it's so hard not to be like, oh, I'm broken. Like there's something wrong with me because
Right.
I'm not in this state. But like, if we look
Yes.
to nature, like nature isn't in that whole, we see whole as the full bloom rose,
But
if you
right.
stick
We
with my
mistake it.
analogy, versus
Yeah.
wholeness is like, is wholeness actually like life in motion? Yeah, that's anyway, I'm not
I'm
quite there yet with it, but
No,
I've
I
been
get it.
contemplating a lot on it. Yeah.
I have, that's why I brought it up, because I was
Mm,
sort of hearing you and I'm going, I wonder if you also have considered this, because I've been
mm,
thinking about this all the time lately. Like, what
mm,
is the nature of healing? Why is that seen as something to avoid?
mm.
I think, anyway, again, I could be wrong. And I think right now everything is one big fat experiment of thought anyway, but I'm
Right.
just been wondering, I'm saying like,
Mm,
well, why don't we honor these two, honor rest as much as we honor productivity? Why don't we honor these cycles? Why it's
mm.
and why do we think our fear needs to go too? Like, that's the other thing. I think, I can make space now, and I've been sort of really practicing. I create a life greater than my fears, but that doesn't mean my fears are gone away. It means that I can call on more courage, because
Mm.
I still am one of many people who is born here who have been conditioned to see the world a certain way, whereas another part of me that's wiser and more connected knows that that's not the true world.
It's so
So
true.
it's no, I don't
Well,
quite know how to language it yet either.
yeah, I hear you. Yeah, there's definitely something rich in here, and it's reminding me of so I have my son who's almost 3 now, and for about a year he's been going through this interest. It's a classic toddler thing where they like test boundaries, and basically
Yeah.
they're not the nicest. They're cute, but anyway, but how it's been showing up for him and I is he was kind of like push pull, like pushing me away a little bit, and just like really what I noticed, really expressing his feelings. And I
Ah.
was like getting hurt because he was like being
Oh.
really mean to me. But then I
Ah.
started, but then I was like, okay, what is, and I couldn't quite work out
Mhm.
what the teaching, because what I've discovered being a mum is that there's a thing called reparenting, and they basically trigger stuff from your childhood. You think you dealt with it, and then it's like, oh no. Anyway, and so I was like, oh, that's interesting. His favorite book is called All About Feelings, and every single night he reads it. He goes to sleep hugging it. And what I realized was he was just like, he was expressing feelings to me when he's like, no, I want to hold daddy's hand or whatever. And I'm like, oh. But the moment I then realized, oh, why are his feelings bad? I'm seeing his
Right.
feelings as bad just because I'm like, you should be like this to your mother, right? Which I would like it. I'd prefer it. But as soon as I just worked out that, then what I did every time that he like did it, played out his feelings in a way that I felt wasn't okay. I
Right.
then made it okay for him to have these feelings. And I realized, oh my gosh, that's what I wanted when I was a kid.
Oh
And then
boy.
it changed everything. And he stopped playing out. And so I guess I'm saying that in that
Wow.
sense of like this perception that we have of like being broken or being, I'm not healed yet, or certain behaviors not being right, and I think with
Yeah.
parenting, it's like a big thing when we shift our framing on it. It's like something completely new opens up.
Yeah. And there's a perceptual thing. And I do think,
Mm,
I know you and I are in alignment on this, because one of the first things I tell people when people enter my school is first off, you are not broken. You're coming in
mm,
here, you're just not broken. There's no brokenness here. And we come here in wholeness to
mm,
discover what we might have lost or temporarily misplaced, or, we need more love. And we make sure we step into this, that, okay, now we just need to wake up to what's already there. And
mm,
very much, reflective of what you just said about your son, making it all okay, making all of it when it does hurt because we have expectations or we want it to be a
mm,
certain way and stuff. And, and even making that okay too. Like,
mm.
wow, ooh, I feel that moment of loss or pain. And like, okay. Because if we don't have all those feelings, I feel like I'm the little kid with the book now. Like, I want all my feelings.
I want that book.
I want that book. I want them all. I want all my feelings. Because really, we have to undo a lot right now. And I think that's kind of, and
Mm,
having the patience to not to be shamed into the undoing, but to
mm.
be in a state of discovery of what needs to be redone, undone. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
And
and what a time this is for that.
right?
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
Mm,
sticking with it, just sticking with it.
mm,
So I want to talk about something that you like to kick off in your workshops with, because I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours about that. But let's move on to the next thing. You talk about something, my favorite thing you talk about, which is stepping into soul time or
mm,
Kairos time. Can we talk about that let's talk about what is it exactly, and how important is it?
mm. So Kairos is it's from the ancient Greeks. There's two different types of time: Chronos time and Kairos time. Kairos time is the space where um, the sacred resides. It's where time feels to kind of like stretch a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's where creative ideas come in fully formed. I find when I'm in Kairos time, my voice actually lowers. It's almost like I
Mm-hmm.
drop more into my body. I slow down a little bit more. You can be in Kairos time when you're with a lover or a friend, or it
Yep.
doesn't have to be like a spiritual practice. Whereas Chronos time is like linear time. So it's kind of like, right, got to get this done. Da, 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 da. You need Chronos time to get the bus on time, get the flight on time, and all of that kind of stuff. So one's not better than the other. But because my work is all about like having an experience of your soul and weaving the sacred back into the
Yeah.
everyday. And so
Mm-hmm.
what I'm really doing in all my work is inviting people to step into Kairos time, which is not to necessarily live there all the time, but when we step in, the sacred is like properly there. Exactly.
And to know that it's there, because I don't think well, certainly we are not taught about that, because we're really conditioned to believe that Chronos time is the best. That, oh no, Kairos
Exactly.
time doesn't really count. There's actually a book out. I'm not going to say what it is, but I ran across a book that was all about how intuition and the sacred has very little value.
What?
This is big. Yes, seriously, it's a big book. I'm not going to name it. But anyway, and I was reading it going, oh my gosh, it's very, very data based, very, very chronos time. And I'm like, wow, this is so interesting. The kind of hangman's kick, if you will, of that very narrow contracted perspective on how we have to be, which is all about production, produce, because there's no room. Kairos time doesn't exist in the production line, right? Whereas we need Kairos time to have ideas.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't come
I
otherwise.
think I would say to that, whoever that person is, has clearly written it in Chronos time. But
it's clearly bothered me, this book.
Yeah, but I believe that Chronos time. So another way of looking at it out of time is just the intuitive mind and then the rational mind and mind, body, soul, right? So the soul is connected to the intuition. The spirit is connected to intuition. And then we've got the mind and the body. And so what I teach is about living a soul-led life. So putting some time aside, at least at first in a structured way, to step into that Kairos time so you can hear your intuition. But it doesn't mean that you're spending your whole day there. Oh my gosh, I put my mind and my body to work. I'm disciplined. I am a Chronos time person.
Me too.
But I prioritize Kairos time. So like I was saying, that example of when I was working as a creative and then a creative director, I would go to the beach on my own for an hour at 6 a.m. in Kairos time, and then I'd go to work and do the Chronos. But to be honest, like the work that I did in Chronos was 100 times better when I began
when
my
you
day
had the
in Kairos. Yeah.
I when I started painting a while back, that's when I had a discipline to step into Kairos time, and know it as that same language. So I've always loved that you taught that, because it gave me the discipline to let go and allow, and then I was so much able to be really grounded and disciplined in the Chronos. So I think what you teach is a way for us to become more balanced. We don't have to go look for this. This is already built into us. We just have to remember it. Speaking of remembering, so this is a fun thing. So, because we are at a different age. So when you were born, I was beginning my career. But anyways, so there was a book called The Starseed Transmissions by Ken Carey, and I was obsessed with it.
Really?
And I felt like I had come home. Somebody understood me. Like this was for me the most extraordinary concept. And I was so excited. Here we are years later, and you create the beautiful Starseed Oracle, and you started teaching about Starseed. So I would love your take on this, and because you've evolved, like everybody evolves these ideas, right? Because it disappeared for a while, but it was so pivotal for me back in the 1991. Right. And I was doing readings at the time.
Born in 91. I was born in 81.
Okay. Well, you were 10. Okay. So how about that? You were still in grade school.
Yeah. I was in like year 3 or something.
Okay. All right. Whatever. But anyway. Yeah. So, but that was like, oh my God. And then when you brought it back, it was like, I never forget. I had goosebumps even in my hair. Right. I was just like, my whole body went. So tell me how you channeled that and how it came to you, and then what the different types are, because you really evolved the concept since then. So let's chat about starseeds.
Well, the starseed thing came in for me around 2011, 2012, like as in like properly came in. And for me, I started learning and studying how to do Akashic Records readings, like in quite a structured way. And one of the trainings I did talked about planets of origin. And so basically from that perspective, it's essentially like, you say you have past lives, but what if the soul has experienced elsewhere? And when I look at things, I'm like, the cosmos that we know is so freaking huge. So like, where do we go when we die? So I was very fascinated by that concept. But more than that, there was something in me, like I had this yearning again within me where I was like, I always felt like is this home? Where's home? I'd always been traveling around, kind of like trying to feel it. And I think
Yeah.
that's an ancestral thing as well. But so I'd always had that. And then when I started learning about this concept of potentially our souls have experienced elsewhere, it made so much sense, because these visions that I'd always had since I was young, and it's why I wanted to get into oracles, really, because I just wanted to get the visuals that were in my head out of my head.
Right.
And so that's where it really began. And I sort of started to do Akashic Records readings, and I started noticing, and I did not expect this, I had a lot of what I would call then starseeds come to me, people who had that same longing for home and memories of elsewhere, da, 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 da. So they kind of directed me a little bit as well, like what would come through in the sessions. And then I did my other books, and then the Starseed deck came in. I actually had pitched Starseed years before, and Hay House were like, that's a bit weird. And I'm like, I know it is.
No,
It is.
really?
No, like, it's not very
No.
on trend or whatever. And then all of a sudden they're like,
My
oh,
God,
everyone is into it now.
that was
So
the number one, but it was huge. 1991. It was so huge.
it's interesting. Yeah. And I think just the timing maybe, but
Yeah.
anyway, but interestingly,
We were ready again.
Exactly. Ready
Yes.
again. And I think I was ready. Because at first for me, the starseed concept was I was like, this is where your soul's from. So like most times when we go through an awakening, we're very certain of things. And then as time goes on, you're like, I'm into the mystery, like more questions.
Right.
And so I'm grateful for that timing, actually. And the Starseed Oracle, my intention was that with that one was really to create imagery and activations that help people remember or souls remember who have that other experience, but also to plant ourselves here more fully. So it was always, don't get lost up there, because it's easy to kind of like bypass and just be like, oh, I was from Pleiades and that's about, I just want to be there now, you know? So I knew it needed to be about anchoring that energy here. And then Hay House asked me to write a book, which I ended up writing Letters to a Starseed. But interestingly, what I was writing at the time was about returning to the earth. So again, it was about beautiful. Planting yourself here.
I think that's my favorite one of yours.
Oh,
I loved it.
Well, it's interesting, Colette, because I don't know if you know my friend Binny Dansby. She's in her 80s. She was friends with Louise. And I was with her when it became clear I was going to write that book. I just had my son. So it was a big kind of commitment to be like, I'm going to, because Hay House wanted it in a very short time and, all of that.
Yeah, I know.
So I had to make a decision on it rather than just, feel into it for a while. And Binny was there and she's like, you definitely need to write that book. And by the way, Ken Carey wrote Starseed Transmissions at my house. So
I'm gonna
back
die.
then, isn't that amazing? And I had never seen the book, and then I got the book, and I intentionally didn't read the book because I didn't want it to influence me. But I had the book here, as in so it was, the energy
all his
was
books
there.
Are amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
That's crazy. I had no idea. That makes me excited. It's really great. That was also, he wrote Return of the Bird Tribes and Vision, etc. And, all of it was about being here. We have a mission here.
Right.
But yes, you're not crazy if you are reading this now, you feel these things, and it's similar to you, like, don't get lost up there.
I think the interesting thing where my thinking evolved, and I'm glad I didn't write about it right at the beginning, is that, and in writing Letters to a Starseed, what came very clear to me was it was less about like, okay, let's say that you're like, I don't know, I've had my soul has experienced Pleiades or whatever. I started seeing it more like, if we go with the concept of even just life experience. So I was born in Australia. I lived in London for 15 years and now I live in Glastonbury. Now I still have an Australian accent, and the land of Australia definitely is in my bones. But then London influenced me. And then now, hippie Glastonbury is definitely, having its way with me. And so from a soul perspective, the past lives influence, but the different incarnations elsewhere influence as well. So I think that, yeah. And then you look at the even just like a scientific thing of like our bodies are literally
Right.
exploded stars. Like
Like, who
what?
are we and how did we
And
get here?
and the water, which is literally like the thing where there is water, there is life. There is no life when there's not
Hmm.
water. Many believe that the water is from elsewhere. It
Right.
just blows my mind.
I want to segue into talking about Glastonbury because I've had the wildest experiences there. To where I'm Serbian, Polish, and Mongolian. I don't have any British bones in my body, and I step on the soil there, and
Mm,
I remember
mm,
being there when I was a little kid. I used to paint blue moons on my forehead, my blue crescent moons, right? Weird, but and then when I stepped there, the peripheral vision I had was I could see the buildings finished. I knew and the smells, it was just so
mm,
uncanny. So what drew you there? Because London and Glastonbury are two very different places, let's be honest.
mm.
What drew you to move to Glastonbury?
Well, like there was no conscious decision involved in moving to Glastonbury. Like we had not planned to. It had been a place that I first visited when I was a teenager, like
Mhm.
19. And then I didn't return even when I was living in London until like, gosh, like my 30s, early 30s. And
Yeah.
I would come here on my own to vision, and I
Mhm.
felt so at home and comfortable in my body. And like, sometimes I don't normally.
I know what you mean. It's like you come home there.
Comfortable, and yeah, exactly. And then I began doing pilgrimages, so I'd been kept on being called back to the land.
Mhm.
But as far as moving here, like we did not plan it at all. And yet my husband and I ended up here, and then we had my son here. And
Yeah.
like, and it's interesting because a lot of people say, oh gosh, like how do you find the energy, it's so intense and all of that. But I don't find it that way. Like it definitely does initiate, the land initiates you
Yeah.
here, and it definitely initiates healing in you.
Yeah.
But I feel more in my body. I feel more grounded here. I feel more at home here.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I don't know. I know that with the house that we live in now, we've actually returned it back to being, it was actually called the Old Rose Cottage, but we had no idea. There were the three owners ago, her thing was roses and David Austin
Wow.
roses, and there's a whole story about it. But essentially, I had no idea. I just had a vision of laying on soft grass with a rose garden, and I had no idea where it was at all. And in the
Wow.
end, we found the place and put on an offer immediately, but there was no garden at all. Like it was all tarmacked. It was an old house, an ancient yew tree, but that was it. And then we started, I knew I wanted David Austin roses. They were my favorite English breeder. And so I found a local guy who used to work at Regent's Park in London and did the roses there, even though I didn't know he did. So it was very
Wow.
serendipitous. And then the neighbors would pass and they were like, you're bringing back the Rose Cottage. And so it lit, yeah. And then we found out that the old lady who lived there, she used to take the bus to London every year to the Chelsea Flower Festival to get the latest David Austin rose from the display and plant
Wow.
it. And so
Oh,
there's
that's
something
beautiful.
about the land here. The land has its way with you, but you don't know what's happening.
I feel it. When we got our place, well, I felt first of all we were tractor beamed into Sedona. Like our friends thought we were
Really?
crazy. Oh my God, I immediately. What are the chances for me to get a U.S. visa? Like was unheard of. What I did
Mm,
for a living, I got that. We literally the doors just swung open, and we just one day up and packed up and just got in a trailer, sold our stuff, and drove to
wow.
Sedona. It was just
Isn't it bizarre?
yeah.
See, this is the thing. I think there's something about like, yeah, the land calls you. You can't possibly understand what's actually happening. And how long were you there for?
Only for Mark, how long were we in Sedona? 4.5 years, 5 years? 4 years. Yeah, 4 years. And I thought we would never leave. And then one day I woke up and went, we have to leave. It's time.
Yeah, the contract's done.
Contract's done. And I created the Hidden Realms and
Right.
Messages from Spirit book. They needed to be birthed there, and I
Right.
needed to see a lot of things. It was very interesting. I want to go back to your rose garden, which I think is
Mm.
just spectacular. Your latest body of work, I believe, is the Rose Oracle. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So can we just, I know we talked about the bloom. We really spoke already about some of the concepts, but was there anything else that you wanted to add? Because it is such a beautiful oracle, and how could
Oh.
people use it? And
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the rose had been a big part of my journey, like right from the beginning, and like a heart healing journey, but then also my creative journey. I wrote my whole first book and the second book actually in the Queen Mary's Rose Garden in Regent's Park
wow.
in London. So yeah, I the rose was kind of like one of these like nature guides that had been there the whole time, but like I didn't think of it in that way. It was just, I just was obsessed with flowers. And
Right.
I remember talking to Holly Holden, who is a mutual friend of ours. And I had a talk at Alternatives in London. And I just said, I just can't talk about what I said I was going to talk about. All I can talk about these days is like flowers and
Rose
how beautiful
flower.
they are. And so she's like, go for it. And so I started to embrace that. But and then I had a different oracle I was meant to be doing, and I told Hay House that it just, well, I wasn't. I woke up this morning and I think it needs to be on. I had said
This.
the Sisterhood of the Rose, and I was expecting them to go like, "You love the rose, but no one else is going to love the rose." But Michelle from Hay House was like, "Absolutely, that's
Beautiful.
absolutely what it should be." And so I created that pretty much as soon as I moved into that house. And Craig, my husband, like you, he works in my business, and we then began like a 2 year deep research guide, a dive on the mystical properties of the rose. And I mean, there's so
Wow.
much symbolism through many, many different cultures and all corners of the world. But the thread that seems to be woven
Hmm.
throughout all of them is the rose as the ancient mother. The rose is a symbol of the feminine, particularly in times
Hmm.
when the feminine was driven underground. You know, like even in the Middle Ages, there was a time
Sure.
where you weren't allowed to take roses into graveyards because it was a symbol of the feminine, of the goddess.
Wow. I did not know that. That is crazy.
Mm,
Well, we need it now, right? This is a
right.
rise of the feminine. I know you used to have a program, Rise Sister Rise. It was one of your books, and now you've changed the name to the Sanctuary.
Mhm.
I believe your uh, membership site, but yeah, that whole need right now. And what I love about how you present your work is that there is a gentle organic quality to it. It is very organic, that it's not like the feminine is coming with spears. It's more like the feminine is arising and needs to bloom as a partner. It's not we're overtaking it. It's no, we
Mm,
need the balance now. So it's I think a lot of what you do is so important right now. So you have a beautiful quote on your website. You say birth is one of two initiations we all share,
mhm.
death the other. Both fascinate me more than anything else. Now, I know you've been through the pregnancy portal before, but now we are doing it again. Have you learned anything new that you feel is fascinating and want to share with our listeners about
Ooh.
pregnancy number two?
Whoa. One thing that has been really interesting is the difference of the two, as in being pregnant. And I've
Right?
been interested in, is that the soul? And I definitely
Ooh.
feel like each child, um, it's like this creative dance that you're doing together. So Sunny is my first. He came in. He's like hardcore starseed, like, "Whoa, I am here," and he blasted through me. He arrived in his waters, actually, still in his
Right.
amniotic sac, and just very, very fierce, strong energy. And when I was pregnant with him, I was very fierce and strong. Like if someone came up to me and said, "Are you pregnant?" This was so out of character. I'd be like, that is my business. Like this whole other thing came in. Whereas this time there's like there's a softness to it. So, but I feel like Sunny cleared a lot within me and like a huge amount. And there's like a certainty and a softness to this pregnancy and a gentleness.
I think you're going to write a book about this.
I think I might. Yeah. It's interesting.
I see it. I actually see it. I'm like, ooh, does she know?
Oh, it's so interesting because I was really afraid of being a mum, to be honest. And birth, I had a lot of fear around just the physical initiation and yeah, just being a mum. And I was really afraid of how it would affect my calling. Ever since I was young, I was like, I know what I'm here for. I might not have known specifically what to do with it, but that was always my priority. And I was afraid of motherhood, like stopping me from doing that. Yeah. But when I reflect back, it's brought me more here, like in a good and bad way. Like I definitely care a lot more about the world, which means I hurt more about the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think, and we're all, I think at this time, I think it's an interesting time that I've become a mum as well, because it was literally 2 months before COVID and the eruption that's happened in the world. Like so much happened in that year. And so I'm like, what is motherhood? What is COVID?
Yeah.
What is this world that we're living in?
Because you went through all that. I talk a lot about the sustained uncertainty that everyone had to go through as an initiation. And actually, you know what I want to do is I want to pull a card from the Shaman's Dream.
Oh, lovely.
So let's pull a card to see if the Wooniverse has anything else any subject that we should cover before we move to the tea time after party. Ooh, so I got Whale Song, which is all about resonating. So I'll just riff on it and then you can too. So, well, I resonate with you, but the idea of resonating is all about what are we in harmony with? And also to choose when we know when our bodies are telling us that, no, this doesn't feel right. It's different than when I feel pain. It means I don't feel safe. But when we're coming from our intuitive sense, we aren't coming from the instinct to survival. So we're not looking for what could go wrong. We're looking for harmony. We're looking for coherence. Our intuition leads us there. So I think that part of your work, obviously mine as well, getting people to listen to their soul, to listen to their intuitive voice, enables us to better resonate with one another in this unified world. What do you think about that?
Oh, I love that. I mean, I love the whales so much. When I was pregnant with Sunny, I was actually swimming with them, and there was a mama whale who like showed me her little baby. It was like a little mama blessing. Yeah.
Was this in the Canary Islands? Where was this?
Off Tenerife. Yeah.
Right.
And to me, the whales, like they're the deep sea divers. They are the mystery themselves. And like when a whale looks in your eyes, it's like it sees you. It's like you are forever changed, like forever, ever, 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 ever changed. And you're swimming with them, and all of a sudden they just like disappear into the depths, and you're like, where have they gone? There's like 80% of, I think it's even more than 80% of the ocean floor that we haven't even discovered yet. So for me, the whales are all about like going into the mystery and surrendering into the mystery. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And that is where we have so much of our own selves inaccessible to us. And I think that's true when we step into the mystery. There is a resonance. It's not an action. It's a beingness. There is a resonance with so much more vastness of what we are capable of and who we could be or who we could become. I think that's what we're all being called into right now. What a great conversation. We are going to switch gears now and travel into another dimension of the Wooniverse, and it's called the Tea Time After Party. a place where we kick up the fun. Okay, joining us now, woohoo, for this fun part is my executive producer, Connie Deletti. Are you ready, Rebecca and Connie, for this fun time?
Ooh, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Rebecca, unsure.
I'm ready.
Okay, Rebecca, do you have a talent that other people might find unusual or something that none of us would know about you?
Yes. One.
I love the way you said that right away.
The one that I think has been with me the most is I'm very renowned for being a very fast walker. I even yeah, and I can also stop very fast too. So yeah.
I would like walking with you. I like fast walkers. My husband's always saying, slow down, slow down.
Oh my gosh.
That's the same.
That's hilarious.
Well, it's interesting because in this pregnancy, I'm pregnant now, I've had this like real bad pelvic pain. And so I'm like, I can't walk fast. And so I'm walking, I think, like a snail. And I saw our friend Kyle Gray the other day and he's just, and I'm like, I'm so sorry I'm walking slow. He's like, no, this is like the perfect pace. I'm so relieved.
That's amazing.
I
City
love
shoes.
this. Okay, so I never ever say nobody's ever asked me what my talent is, but I can speak burpish. I can say entire sentences
talk in burp.
in a burp. I can.
Do you need to prepare with some kind of
I can't do
soda?
It. No, yes.
Or you can do it now.
Perrier. No, I'm not going to do it.
Okay.
I can't do it. But I can literally speak a whole sentence in burp.
I believe that about you. I believe that about you.
When I see you at the next conference, I am going to drink a lot of Perrier.
Amazing.
Do you now only do performances for Mark?
Yes, Mark can hear me. Mark, I don't do it often, but I've been dying to say it to somebody on some interview.
We see you, Colette.
Yeah, we see you. We appreciate that. That's amazing.
Your turn, Connie.
Rebecca, you're known for like your flowing, beautiful fashions. So, but prior to these fashions, have you ever rocked like a zany outfit or went through a phase with your clothing, your fashion, your fashion?
Well, I would say that when I was in high school, I was really into, I would go to school dances and me and my friends would dress up and like just dance like idiots. Like it was not very cool. Like literally like as Barbie and the Rockers or 80s or whatever. Yeah, it was really weird. Everyone else was like, trying to meet their future husbands, but we were just trying to embarrass ourselves. And then for some reason, the whole thing was called Becky's Dance Group. And then, and we'd do these shows for the year. It was so weird. And my first email was dancegroup@hotmail.com.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That is funny.
Great.
Okay. If you could be wildly successful in another profession, what would you choose?
Oh, I think I would love to either be like some kind of like fashion designer artist or like an actress performer type thing. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, you never know. You may. I see a line in your future. I see a line in your future. Okay, I should stop saying that. Your turn.
Okay, let's see. You're banned from the library. Why?
Oh. I think I'm trying to find all the secret books.
Ooh, that's
the
a good
ones
one.
like from the reference
in the well
library
underneath the library.
Ooh,
I love that. I love that. This is
I'm probably going, this is all wrong. This is patriarchal history.
Bring your pen in there, right? Rewriting a few pages.
Let's rewrite some of those books. That's right. Okay, this is not a fun question, but I have seen various videos of you on stage singing, playing an instrument. How many instruments do you play? And what are they?
Well, I've played the piano, the recorder, like everyone did at school,
yes.
Then the piano, and then the harmonium. I think that's it.
The harmonium.
I love
beautiful.
when you play the harmonium. I love that. I love the harmonium.
Absolutely.
Well, that's cool. I got stuck playing the tuba in the school band.
You played the tuba?
I played that tuba on top of the piano. And
So then there's the connection to the burping,
top
the
of
the
the
burping
tuba.
and the tuba.
The burping
right?
and the tuba. You have like incredible like
Right?
lung capacity. Yeah.
And when you say
hated that.
on top of the piano, like sitting on the piano or as well as the
No,
piano?
as well. But knowing me, I would sit upon a piano playing a tuba.
Like a tuba.
I couldn't
course.
believe they assigned me that. Like,
Maybe we should
why?
recreate that at I Can Do It Tampa.
Right. You play the harmonium
Oh my God.
in
Yeah.
your Becky costume,
Yeah.
and I will
Yeah.
sit there with a tuba.
That's
Oh God. Okay. I hope other people think we're funny because we're just like laughing our faces off here. It's like- okay, everybody. This was such a great conversation today. To learn more about Rebecca and all of her offerings, visit her at RebeccaCampbell.me. And for anyone new to Rebecca's world, she even offers a 7-day free guided practice on her website, which is so beautiful. So go check it out. You can always find a transcript of each episode, quotes, and so much more on our show notes page, either via our website at itwpodcast.com or click the link in this episode's description. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Connie.
Yay.
Thank you, Colette. Thank you, everyone.
So, what did we learn today from this really great conversation with Rebecca Campbell, spiritual teacher and oracle creator? I want to go back to the card that I chose from the Shaman's Dream Oracle Whale Song, card 61. And when Rebecca spoke about the mystery and about being seen by the eye of the whale, and how they can go so deep and discover, there's areas of the ocean we've never seen and may never, never see, but that there's just so much mystery and there's a vastness to us that we have not yet experienced or even explored, and that we have to invite more of the mystery into our lives because that is really the richness. That's where all the depth is. So that was a beautiful description that she had provided for us. So thank you again for listening to Inside the Wooniverse. Until next time, I'm Colette Baron-Reid.